So in the 2021 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors will have the 7th pick. The Warriors are coming off of a season where they barely missed the postseason, and this was due to the fact that their roster was missing a lot of talent, and their second best player in Klay Thompson was injured the whole season. But even though Klay Thompson is going to return next season, I don't think he will magically make them an elite team or title contenders. So I think in this year's draft, they need to either select a player who can help their team out right now, or trade for a player who can help their team out right now. So in today's video, I'll be talking about the 3 most likely prospects I think the Warriors will select with the 7th pick, as well as the possibility that Golden State trades the 7th pick for more assets. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and touch my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Comment this video to conversation with me as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. But before we get into what prospects the Warriors could potentially select 7th overall, we have to talk about the chance that the Warriors trade the number 7 pick for assets. If I'm being honest, I honestly think it's legit more likely that the Warriors trade the 7th pick than keep it, due to the fact that last season they were rumored to maybe trade the 2nd overall pick for a star player, and instead they kept it, and right now that isn't looking like the right move at this current moment, and instead they got James Wiseman, who's kind of a sketchy player. But some trades I think they can make with the 7th overall pick is trading the 7th pick, Andrew Wiggins, and James Wiseman to the Pistons, and in return they get Jeremy Grant. This would be amazing for the Pistons since they would get the 7th pick in such a loaded draft class, meaning they could definitely maybe get a start. They would also be getting James Wiseman, who's a center with potential, and they would be getting Andrew Wiggins, who's a solid starter. And in my opinion, giving up Jeremy Grant wouldn't be such a big deal to them since he's probably not a part of their future. I think this might be the best amount of assets that they could get in return for him. And for the Warriors, this would make sense since it's unlikely that they're gonna get someone with the 7th pick who can have a bigger impact on the team than Jeremy Grant. And James Wiseman showed that he's not ready to be a winning player right now in his career, and right now they're trying to win. Grant should also be able to play off Steph and Klay and get way easier shots. He's also athletic and can defend, so they wouldn't have to worry about him on that side of the floor. So I think this is a pretty good trade. Another trade that I think could potentially happen involves the Toronto Raptors. I think this trade would be the 7th pick, James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins, and a future 2nd round pick to the Raptors, and then the Golden State Warriors get Pascal Siakam in return. And honestly, I think this would be a good trade for both teams since the Raptors would be getting the 7th pick, which is also adding another young player to their core, and they would also get James Wiseman, who would be a solid center since Toronto is desperately in need for a center, and getting one with as much potential as Wiseman isn't bad. And Andrew Wiggins is a solid starter in the NBA, and he could help them win games because I don't think they're going to be a bad team next season. And for the Warriors, they would get Pascal Siakam, who's an all-star, and just like a year ago he was a top 20 player in the NBA and an all-star starter. I think he could have his best seasons playing alongside Klay and Steph, and I think he's a better skilled, more offensive player oriented version of Draymond Green, so I think he'll really thrive and really help them. The last trade I think could potentially happen is a move that includes the Houston Rockets, and this trade includes Christian Wood and Eric Gordon to the Warriors, and Andrew Wiggins, the 7th pick, a future 2025 first, and James Wiseman to the Rockets. And I think this move would make a lot of sense for the Rockets since they would be getting the 7th pick, which means they could potentially draft a star to their team. They will also get James Wiseman, who's a center with a lot of potential, and a future 2025 first, which is always good. And Andrew Wiggins is a solid NBA player that they could maybe trade in the future. And for the Warriors, they got Christian Wood, who in my opinion is an all-star and a top 10 center in the NBA. The Warriors' biggest weakness was probably the center position, and although Woods isn't as good of a defender as a guy like Kevon Looney, he is a world's better player due to his offensive capabilities because he can actually shoot the ball, and he actually has post moves, and he can attack mismatches. And they could actually run a 5-out lineup with a center on the court, which is something that I think could really unleash this team. They also would be getting Eric Gordon, who is inconsistent, but he is a player who could be a pretty good role player and hit some shots. So I think all three of those trades are somewhat realistic for the Warriors. I don't think they're going to trade for a guy like Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine or anything like that. But now onto the prospects. The first prospect that the Golden State Warriors could potentially select with the 7th overall pick is Keon Johnson out of Tennessee State. Johnson's a 6'5", 186-pound guard who's a freakish athlete. I believe he had the highest vertical jump in NBA draft history or something like that, so he's definitely very athletic. He's a high-level defender with amazing reflexes, and he also has the lateral quickness and speed to stay in front of defenders. He attacks the rim very well and often puts defenders in a position to where they either have to foul him or just let him score the layup. He has a great feel for angles, and he also has solid handles that let him get around the defense easily, and in transition he's always one to make highlight plays. But now to talk about what some of his weaknesses is the fact he's not really a good shooter, as he shot 27% from 3 in his time at college. He also only averaged 11 points in college, which is an amazing sign. He also apparently isn't the most gifted scorer, since a lot of times he relied on post-ups to score when he needed to, which isn't like the worst thing, but for a 6'5" skinny guard, you would hope that's not the case. To the NBA, he probably won't be able to do that. He also has the tendency to over dribble into the teeth of the defense and throw bad shots or make a bad pass. He also turns the ball over a lot due to his loose handles, and when it comes to help defense and things like that, he's not a plus defender because he's not really that smart. And to be honest, if the Warriors were going to keep this pick, signing Keon Johnson wouldn't be that bad, because I feel like he's a guy who could come straight into the NBA and have an impact on the defensive side of the floor. The only thing is that if the Warriors were a top 5 defense last season, so that's not one of their weaknesses. They need more offensive players, but I do think Keon Johnson is one of the more NBA ready players because of his defense. So I think maybe if they just want to add more defense players to their team and become even better on defense, they should maybe select him, because although they are really good on defense, they can still improve. Maybe they just feel like Keon Johnson can help them straight out the gate more than any other prospect, and I think there's a decent chance that they select him. The second prospect the Warriors should potentially select with the 7th overall pick is DaVon Mitchell. Mitchell's a 6'2" guard, and he's one of the more older players in the draft lottery, as he's 22. He's also apparently a very efficient scorer, and he's an elite shooter from all areas on the court, as he did shoot 45% from 3 and 52% from the field overall. He's a very shifty and quick player, which is something that allows him to blow by defenders as easier than other prospect. He's also a very strong passer, as he always keeps his head up and finds open teammates. He can also run the pick and roll at a decent level, and he has no problem taking pull-up threes and hitting contested threes. He also has very smart IQ, and he rarely takes dumb shots. And not only is he good on the offensive side of the floor, where he excels arguably at an elite level, he's also a very good defensive player, and he honestly might be one of the more better defensive players in the whole draft class, as he has great lateral quickness when it comes to staying in front of the ball, and he's able to harass defenders without fouling. He can also guard bigger forwards due to his strength, meaning he's a versatile defender as well. He also has a terrific motor, as he's always trying on defense, and he's really good at communicating, and he's supposed to be one of the more NBA ready prospects just because of his defense. To talk about some of his weaknesses, is the fact that he's not a great pick and roll passer, and he also isn't a great free throw shooter, as in his time in college he only shot 66% from the line, and that brings up the question of whether or not he can actually shoot at a good level in the NBA. He also apparently isn't a great athlete when it comes to his vertical jump, so he could potentially struggle when it comes to finishing at the rim, since it's unlikely he's going to be dunking on people or anything like that. Also, his wingspan is pretty average, but nonetheless, if DaVon Mitchell is available, I think there's a very high chance that the Golden State Warriors select him, because he just seems like one of the more NBA ready prospects, and he could obviously really help this team on the defensive side of the floor, but he can also do it on the offensive side of the floor if his shooting translates at even an average level. One of the biggest problems on this Warriors team was the fact that they had a terrible backup point guard, because their backup point guard for most of the season was Brad Wanamaker, which obviously is absolutely disgusting. But when they traded him, and then their backup point guard became kind of Jordan Poole. Although Poole is a very good player, he's not an amazing passer, and I feel like DaVon Mitchell would be a significantly better backup point guard. Poole is still going to play, but I feel like he's more of a shooting guard rather than a point guard. So I think there's a high chance that DaVon Mitchell gets selected by the Warriors due to the fact that he could play as their backup point guard, and even though he's an older rookie, it doesn't really matter that much since the Warriors are trying to win right now, and I feel like he can help them right away. The third potential prospect the Warriors could select with the 7th pick is James Buckennight out of UConn. Buckennight is a 6'5" shooting guard who's able to score at all 3 levels. He has the ability to attack the rim due to his solid handles. He's a high-rising guard as he uses his vertical to finish at the rim. He's also a very good rebounder for his height, and he's always attacking the glass. He also is a player who thrives in isolation due to his shiftiness and his handles and things like that. He's also great at creating his own shot off the dribble. He's a decent playmaker who can often find open teammates, and he's also like a decent defender like he should be, since he does have a 7-foot wingspan and he's only 6'5". He also is one of the better prospects when it comes to moving off the ball. He can also shoot the 3 ball at a good level, and in transition he's a pretty solid player who could finish with some powerful dunks. To discuss some of his weaknesses, it's the fact that at times he gets overconfident and takes too much shots that he shouldn't take, and he can often shoot his team out of games. He also is a very skinny player, so he probably can't guard bigger players straight into the NBA. He also struggled when it came to not turning the ball over, as he averaged significantly more turnovers than assists. And when it comes to like whether or not the Warriors will select Buckennight, I do think there's a decent chance that they select him due to the fact that Buckennight is a guy who can score the ball at a very good level, and he can create his own shot. He also moves off the ball, and when you have Steph Curry on your team and Draymond Green, that could really like help them out because he can get open shots without even holding the ball. And the Warriors kind of need more offensive players who can actually handle the ball and create plays for themselves at a decent level. Since last year, they were literally relying on just Steph Curry and sometimes Andrew Wiggins to do things like that. And if they could get another guy who could do that stuff at a decent level, it would be absolutely huge. Buckennight is also like a decent defender, so he wouldn't like be a huge liability on this team, and I think he has like more potential to be a star than guys like DaVon Mitchell or Keon Johnson. But in my opinion, I don't see Buckennight being a prospect who comes straight into the NBA and plays as great as a guy like DaVon Mitchell. I think I could see him struggling a bit coming into the league, but I do think he'll be a very solid player when he fits in. But to conclude the video, if I had to guess who the Golden State Warriors are going to select with their 7th overall pick if they do keep it, I would predict that they take DaVon Mitchell due to the fact that he seems like a player who could come straight out the gate and be a positive on both sides of the floor. He's also one of the more NBA ready prospects, and I doubt he's going to be selected by then, so I'm pretty certain they'll be able to get him. And I think he's easily the right choice. But if DaVon Mitchell somehow is not there, my guess is that they would probably take James Buckennight, or maybe they would just take Jalen Suggs or Jonathan Kuminga, because if DaVon Mitchell got selected earlier, one of those guys would fall down. But overall, I think DaVon Mitchell is for sure who they're gonna like. This is probably the most sure I've been since the first pick. They're definitely gonna take DaVon Mitchell, and I think it's the right choice. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know who you think the Warriors are going to draft 7th overall. Drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel for weekly NBA content. Answer some goal of 1,500 subscribers. Comment as much conversation as I do respond to all of my comments. And I'm out.